Welcome to another edition of Rebellion's educational series. I'm excited to have Professor Bill Poucher of Baylor State University with us. Professor Poucher, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to come and delighted to hear about your machine learning that you've done to whip the financial districts of the world.
Thank you, Professor Poucher. For our viewers who don't know, Professor Poucher is one of the most respected computer science professors of the last 25 years. At Baylor State, he's won endless awards and teaches network architecture and theoretical computer science. I think, Professor, you would agree that strict programming is very important for, the young students always ask first thing, what should we focus on for our budding careers? And I say, make sure you have strong coding skills, number one.
Absolutely. The bottom line is that you need to be able to build the tools that you need to build tools for other people. You see, you need to be able to drill down right there to the mathematics, to the art, and that's what we try to do in the ICPC International Collegiate Programming Contest and at Baylor University. We try to help build problem solvers, and that also means helping build them as individuals.
So the ICPC is the largest collegiate programming competition currently.
It is. We had, I think, about 60,000 students from 3,100 universities and 104 countries compete this past year. We've operated for 50 years. It's quite an interesting thing. We profiled some of our 400,000 alumni a couple of years ago, and we were impressed with how diversely they are integrated into the problem-solving sectors of business.
That's very cool that you've influenced so many of the change makers today. So may I ask, what machine learning are you most excited about currently? Is there anything specific?
Well, heavens, I guess machine learning has transformed the world. There are a tremendous number. Well, for one thing, it's real. You do have to watch out in our language in that we develop jargon to describe an area of interest, right? But machine learning is not only an area of interest, but there are solid tools in there that deliver results for people. So I actually think that we are beginning the digital renaissance even faster than I thought we would. And that is that COVID-19 has driven technology to deliver a bouquet of vaccines that are safer than any in times past in a record amount of time. And we built an infrastructure so that people are not alone and that they can continue to interact with each other socially and through business. And that's just got to move forward.
COVID has definitely transformed the economy and society we live in by fast forwarding in a painful way, of course, with significant job loss that otherwise would have taken time. I mean, these movie theaters and restaurants and comedy clubs would have, they would have petered out over time, and it would have been slow, but much less painful nevertheless. So, Professor, I was wondering how you felt about deep versus reinforcement learning. If there's quite a debate on Wall Street right now. Rebellion was inspired by Professor Judea Pearl's work with probabilistic Bayesian networks. That's what inspired our work. But right now, in the quant circles and in the quant circuits, reinforcement learning versus deep learning is a big kind of push back and forth. And I was wondering if you had an opinion on either.
Well, I would call Greg Hammerly at Baylor University, professor who is an expert in deep learning and a past ICPC world finalist. Okay, he would really be the right person to ask that question. The key is that the different technologies all have a problem domain. And if in nature you find that you have a problem that fits, okay, then they can generate a solution for you. Now,
Yeah.
both of those areas are maybe focused on a similar set of problems right now, but as they mature, they'll foliate and focus. So what would I do? What I always do, okay? 2 ways to achieve an objective, a third alternative, a fallback position, and one I'm never going to tell you about at all if I'm going to move forward, right? And so I'd frankly invest in both technologies to try to understand best how they can meet your needs. The bottom line, though, is that machine learning, okay, regardless of the approach, um, 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 allows us to get closer to real intelligence, not just artificial intelligence, because we all learn from our experience. Okay, if we're the kind of folks that have 30 years of experience rather than 1 year of experience 30 times. And so what machine learning does is that it delegates part of that learning to the actual software system that is trying to delve and understand the shape of information.
Yes, very, very much so. And, you know, since Rebellion has such a militaristic focus, we've done a lot of interviews with generals, colonels, whatnot, and we do a lot of pieces in the military domain. And in fact, we actually also have a loose working partnership with the Air Force, which has been a lot of fun. But
well, my dad was career military.
I saw that you were a military brat. Yes, yeah. No, we published a piece recently with the Air Force a month ago, and
Yeah.
you know, we're looking forward to hopefully doing more.
Yeah, my dad was on the committee that defined the U.S. Air Force in '47 from, as the Army Air Corps prior to that time. And he started his career fighting bandits on the Rio Grande as a horse cavalryman and got a bad case of saddle sores and saw a sign-up chart for the Army Air Corps, and he figured that he might get killed, but he wouldn't want to die. So he signed that thing up, and that's how he got into the Army Air Corps, which became the Air Force, and put 27, 28 years of service in for his country.
That's very cool. Well, just reverting back to my analogy, it's that bombers are like deep learning, and that they can do, a very fixed, specific approach very well, versus fighter planes, which are reinforcement learning, which have less of a punch, but more of an ability to pivot, if you will. And so with, reinforcement learning, you're more, concerned with giving up a pawn to get a rook, if you will, to quote my friend, Professor Ritter, who's it's one of my favorite quotes. Reinforcement learning is much more probabilistically inclined. But at the same time, one of my brightest students has been pushing me to look at deep reinforcement learning, which is a nice mixture of the two. So, of course, depending on the data set, as you mentioned, something else I always tell my students is that machine learning should be your last approach. You should have your thesis. You should try to get as close as possible. And then at the very end, when you need some help in either interpretation or analysis, then you take your your machine learning motor. So that's, the way I like to teach it. But
exactly, it's sort of like you're building a tool, okay, that is going to be mining for ore, right? For something of value, but you have to know what you're actually mining for.
Exactly.
And one of them is definitely better if you set your sights on what you're looking for. The other is better at identifying what's there and letting you then take a look to see whether there's some extra value in it. It's all about the shape of things. And remember, we as computer scientists don't just see shape in 3 dimensions. Okay, we see shape in 4 dimensions. You see, just like a musician, the shape of that music is in time, right? And the palette, if you would, of the art that is occurring is not just the end product, but is from the moment of creation to the formation until you have that object. But in our world, we really never have the object, okay? Because if a system is really delivering results, it continues to live and be of value to the users. I know that's a little on the general side, isn't it?
No, 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 not at all. Well, speaking of general, AI is having another renaissance right now. And as you know, in the 60s, the 90s, AI has had its share of bubbles. Do you think this bubble will burst? Do you think we'll have another AI slowdown? Or do you think that times are different now?
Well, AI is an interesting term. Okay, it sort of reminds me of the jet age and streamlined. And we had a toaster that was streamlined. Now, I don't know why our toaster was streamlined. It's just that people bought streamlined toasters because they were impressed with jets.
No.
So one of the interesting things about artificial intelligence is that it's one of those terms that at different times in history um, wrapped around certain problem solving techniques and ways of looking at problem solving that didn't deliver what you might call a fixed form result, but it delivered something of value. Today, AI has many solid tools for
Yes.
delving into a tremendous array of problems that are out there, and they can be successful within what are called the combinatorial bounds of the problems. Now, are we going to be able to simulate the entire working of a human brain? Well, I'm sorry, I can do the combinatorial math on that, and I wouldn't invest in a company that was doing that, simply because we would probably have to go 40 generations before any of my descendants
Yeah.
might receive a profit. But if someone is trying to understand a pathway in the brain that controls this X, Y, and Z, I'm going to open my eyes to see what they're doing.
Very much at the dawn of the dawn. We can see directions, but we can't really even understand how we got there a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, in terms of singularity, we're so far from, I've heard different, but I mean, we can achieve singularity in certain data sets where, it can run autonomously and create on its own. But in terms of true, human intelligence singularity, God, I feel like we're so far from it. I can't even imagine. I feel like any answer would just be total uh, BS, really.
Well, when I was a kid, there was a pecan tree in my neighbor's next door neighbor's yard, and it was just a favorite place for this pileated woodpecker. I mean, there's a great big old woodpecker.
Mm-hmm.
Wham, 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 wham. And I don't know whether you know this, but a woodpecker's tongue actually wraps around his brain to protect it, comes on out, and he pecks on that thing like he's trying to cut that tree down and get some insects to eat. Okay, that to me is what AI is really good at, because that tree had plenty of insects. Okay, the woodpecker was not trying to chop the tree down. Okay, if he chopped the tree down, the woodpecker would have been out of business, right? So what's great about artificial intelligence is that if you're on one of those trees that has plenty of insects, there are special techniques that you can go out there to mine and to find the nutrient that you need if you're a redheaded, woodpecker, and I think that's where we are. But today's world, okay, post COVID, as we move into it, has so many needs, so many problems that we can solve for people, okay, to guarantee that our society is not crippled by disease, okay, to knock out famine, okay, to knock out, you know, war due to misunderstanding among persons with a common good. They're all, we don't have to, those are three great big trees. They're going to be around for a long time, but we need to get pecking on those guys, you know, so that they become a source of building a better civilization rather than a threat to the civilization we have.
Well, it's a matter of time and pressure. Well,
Yeah.
this was a fantastic conversation, Professor. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts. And I wish you a safe, happy New Year.
Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of the ICPC International Collegiate Programming Contest, all we try to do for our students, okay, is to help them build habits of excellence, just like Aristotle said in the first place.
And Baylor State is a wonderful school as well, by the way. Let's not forget that.
Just Baylor University, you know, we were the first formed in the state. I'm sorry, in Texas, but it was during the Republic of Texas period. So not a problem. But Baylor is a great place, and I've been privileged to work there with my friends and to work with people all over the world because we build students who solve problems for their neighbors.
You know, UT, Baylor, Rice, those are the names that, you know, we in the Northeast know about from Texas. And,
well, there are a bunch of really great places there, and a bunch of great places in the Northeast. In fact, I had an ancestor who actually lived on property that is now called Wall Street. Okay, but it was just a wall between him and the wilderness at the time. So we're all one family of cousins, okay, with a tremendous diversity of talent and interest, and we just need to invigorate and remember, don't knock our brains out like a woodpecker would if the technique is not good. You know.
Well, I appreciate from one birder to another. I appreciate it, and
you bet. And thank you very much for bringing me on board.
Oh, no. Pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.